Hi, my name's Hannah Silver. You might know me from some of my other videos that I've done. Most of them are improvisations, but I've also put up another piano technique video which was focusing on hands. And after I put that video up, I had a couple of people ask me about wrists or were just interested to hear more about that. So I'm making a video all about how to use your wrists on piano. There's three basic sort of techniques that I'm just going to run you through today. The first one is basically for playing slowly. On each note your wrist will go down, up. The way you should feel about it is that when you go down into the note, you're really sinking down into the depths of the note. Really enjoy feeling what it feels like to press the key down. So as you can see, if you do it both hands, it's basically the same. Don't be afraid to go down. Sometimes my students see me do this and they say, hey, you're bending your wrist down, because I always tell them you at least need to have a straight wrist. And I say, yeah, but I'm coming back up. So that's okay to sink down. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is wrist circles. Now with wrist circles, the rule for both hands is that on your thumbs you go down with your wrist and on your thighs you go up. So if you're going with your right hand just walking up and down, that means you go down, up, down, up. And as you can hear, this is for playing faster. So the left hand will be the opposite because you start with your 5. So you'll go up, down. Now why I just did that was to show you that even if you start going really, really fast, you still do the same motion, you simply use less movement. So you would have seen, starting with my students, I always have them exaggerate it. They love it. So you start off exaggerating it, but as you get used to it, you can go faster, so you can play evenly. It just becomes a smaller wrist circle. Okay, so to give you some examples before I tell you the last wrist technique, some examples of how you can use those two that I've already talked about. Arpeggios. I'm just going to show you rather than explain. So obviously wrist circles, you can see if I go slower. And of course it will be opposite. Anything with wrist circles, the hands are going to go opposite. What else? Hanon, right. If you take first Hanon number 1, you can see you're going to have the wrist circles there as well. You'll also have them with you can do smaller wrist circles if you do a Hanon like this one. I don't remember what number it is, but it's in my other video. So you can see a little, don't remember. Little wrist circle there. Scales as well, actually. You need to make sure with scales that you play close to the blacks to allow the thumb to get under, and I'll show you what a lot of my students will do. They'll go like this. They'll be lifting up the elbow to help the thumb tuck underneath. So to avoid that, the reason why you want to avoid it is because if you're doing this, anything with a big movement is going to slow you down. So as soon as you want to go fast, you want to use as little movement as possible so you can get fast. So to avoid that, you play close to the blacks because your thumb is a short finger. It only comes up to there when your other fingers are all the way up here. Close to the blacks, and your wrist lift up to allow your thumb underneath. up with a really pretty wrist circle. Okay. And finally, just an application with a piece. There's a little folk tune called Honeybee. It's in the Suzuki piano syllabus. Slow notes, faster notes. Oh, and also if you're ever playing with Alberti bass, assuming it's not too fast, and usually it's not, you'll go up, down, up, down. So using 5, 1, 3, 1. So basically it's always down on 1. I'm doing it from memory. Okay. So the last technique, I call it the down, up, more, less wrist technique. More or less in terms of volume, more volume, less volume. Quickly, the finished product would look like this. Okay, so the way you do this in slow motion, you have to do this in slow motion. If you're going to teach this to yourself, you have to do this in slow motion. To begin with, you hang your hand up here and make sure that your wrist is bent like this. When you first hit the note, still keep your wrist up like this, then put it down. Because this is all about using the weight of your arm to get a loud sound out. That first one. And secondly, the quiet note, what happens is, here's what you do now. You start lifting your wrist, and as you're lifting it, on the way up, you catch the second note. Because if you're taking your hand away from the piano, it's physically impossible to play loudly, because you have to press down to make the sound. So if you're taking your hand away, it has to come out softer. So that's why this technique is so good. So to begin with, do it really slowly. You might need to do it even slower than this. Sometimes the note doesn't come out, and that's fine. You just get better at it. And gradually you get faster and faster. And you would have noticed then that as I was going faster, while I was still doing the movement, I was doing a lot less movement. Don't be tempted to just do this in the right hand. Do everything, all wrist stuff in the left hand as well. Even if it doesn't get as much application. An example of that is, there's a pretty simple piece it's a Suzuki piece. It's a Beethoven Sonatina, and it goes like this. So you would have heard. So that's a great place where you want more, less, more, less, more, less, more, less. And anytime you've got any phrasing where you want to have a loud note and a soft note, you can use this technique. So that's pretty much it. With all of these exercises, the more you do them, you want to do these enough that you can do them without thinking that you're playing, and without even especially, well, this is with young children. So, and when I say young children, I mean under the age of 8 or 7. I teach kids as young as 2.5. They're the best at using their wrists if you teach them right. For adults, it will probably be different. It might take a long time before you use your wrist without thinking about it. Personally, during my teenage years, the teacher I had didn't really force me to use my wrists until I switched when I was around 14 or 15, and then my teacher said you have to use your wrists. So after 6 years or so of not being forced to, I had to really think about it. So today I still find that I need to tell myself when to use them and what to do. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or anything to add, please leave a comment or send me a message. I hope you have found this video useful, and happy playing.